It was a cold, misty Sunday morning in Portland, Oregon. The city was still waking up as the first faint rays of sunlight filtered through the gray sky. The Fremont Bridge, one of the city's iconic landmarks, stood tall and steady above the Willamette River, its steel girders shimmering faintly under the early light. Commuters hurried across the pedestrian walkway, bundled up against the chill, their breath visible in the crisp air. Everyone was focused on their own day ahead, until something unexpected shattered the calm dot near the edge of the bridge. A small, trembling figure appeared, a young German Shepherd puppy, barely 4 months old. Its fur was thick but damp from the morning dew, and its large, innocent eyes darted anxiously left and right. The pup was terrified, alone, and dangerously close to the railing that separated the walkway from the dizzying drop to the icy river below. Passers-by noticed immediately. A cyclist skidded to a stop, concerned, while a woman clutched her phone, unsure whether to call for help or approach. Some drivers slowed their cars, peering out their windows at the tiny creature so close to the edge. "Who's this little guy? Where's his owner?" A man muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the empty walkway. No answers came. The puppy paced nervously, its paws skittering on the cold concrete. It let out a soft whimper, and its tail tucked low between its legs. Something had scared it, perhaps the roar of trucks passing by, or the overwhelming height. People watched, with growing anxiety, unsure what to do next. Then, suddenly, a loud horn blasted from a passing truck, and the puppy froze in terror. Its front paw slipped on the slick surface, and before anyone could react, the puppy tumbled forward. For a terrifying moment, it seemed to hang in midair, legs flailing. Then, with a heart-stopping splash, the puppy plunged over the railing and disappeared beneath the dark, rushing waters of the Willamette River. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Some people screamed. Others stood frozen in shock. A cyclist dropped his phone in disbelief. Time slowed. The world seemed to hold its breath. Among the stunned spectators was Ben Carter, a 26-year-old Navy veteran who had just parked his car on the side of the road. He had been on his way to visit a friend, but stopped abruptly when he witnessed the horrifying scene unfold. Without hesitation, Ben raced to the edge of the bridge, scanning the churning river below. "Where is he?" Ben shouted, his voice shaking with urgency. Adrenaline surged through his veins. Without a second thought, he kicked off his shoes and jacket, tore through the guardrail, and dove headfirst into the freezing water. The river was brutal. The current was fast and merciless, pulling him under the surface with an icy grip. His lungs screamed for air, his muscles burned from the cold. But Ben pushed on, driven by a singular goal to find the puppy and bring it back alive. Underwater, the darkness pressed in. Then, through the murk, he spotted a small, limp shape. The puppy's tiny body floated downstream, unconscious but still breathing. Ben grabbed it tightly in one arm, kicking hard toward the surface. Breaking through the water, he gasped for air. The crowd above shouted and waved. Nearby, a fishing boat crew noticed the commotion and steered toward the struggling swimmer. Kicked toward the boat, barely able to keep the puppy's head above water. The cold was unbearable, but his grip never faltered. "Over here," Ben shouted, waving his free hand. Hands reached down, pulling both him and the puppy aboard. Ben collapsed on the deck, drenched and shivering violently, clutching the tiny dog close. He looked down at the puppy's closed eyes, feeling his heart pounding louder than ever. "Come on, little guy. You're going to be okay," he whispered, beginning CPR above them. The crowd on the bridge erupted into cheers and tears. No one knew what would happen next. The icy water bit deep into Ben Carter's skin as he clung tightly to the limp body of the German Shepherd puppy. His heart pounded fiercely, fueled by both adrenaline and fear. The freezing current tried to pull him under again, but he fought with every ounce of strength to keep the fragile life he had just found above the churning surface dot around him. The river was a swirl of darkness and noise, the roar of rushing water mixed with the distant shouts of the crowd on the bridge. The cold was a living thing, gnawing at his muscles, threatening to steal his breath. But Ben's mind was focused on one thing, the puppy, who he had already decided to call River for the wild water that had nearly taken him. Nearby, a fishing boat, captained by a man named Miguel Alvarez, cut through the waves, its motor buzzing. Through the chilly air, Miguel had been out early to check his nets when he heard the splash and the desperate calls from the bridge above. Without hesitation, he steered toward the spot where Ben struggled, aware that time was running out. "Hold on, buddy," Miguel called out as he neared the floundering figure. "We're coming for you." With a final burst of effort, Ben kicked, his legs harder, reaching the side of the boat. Miguel and his crew tossed him a thick rope, and with their help, Ben hauled himself aboard, still cradling the puppy. The deck was slippery and cold, but Ben wasted no time. He laid River down gently and immediately began CPR, compressing the tiny chest and blowing air into the small muzzle. His hands trembled as he worked, desperate to bring the pup back from the edge. Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours. The crew gathered silently, eyes fixed on the frail animal. Outside, the sky darkened slightly as clouds rolled in, mirroring the weight of uncertainty that hung over them. Then, as if by a miracle, River's chest twitched. A tiny cough escaped his throat, followed by a weak whimper. Ben's eyes filled with tears. "He's breathing," Ben said hoarsely, his voice cracking. The boat's radio crackled to life. Emergency services had arrived at the riverbank, their sirens wailing and lights flashing in the distance. Help was on the way. Miguel wrapped River in a thick blanket and handed the puppy to Ben, who held him close to his chest, whispering soft reassurances. Despite his exhaustion, Ben felt a new surge of hope. At the riverbank, paramedics rushed to meet them. They carefully took River and Ben into their care. The puppy was immediately loaded into an ambulance, where oxygen was administered, and a rapid assessment began. Ben, soaked to the bone and shivering violently, was checked by medics for hypothermia and minor injuries. Despite his own condition, all his attention remained on River. One of the paramedics, a woman named Lisa, looked up at him and smiled gently. "You saved his life," she said. "Not many people would have taken that leap." Ben shrugged modestly, still holding the tiny pup. "I just did what anyone would have done." The ambulance sped toward the nearest veterinary hospital, the lights flashing through the early morning mist. Back on the bridge, the crowd had grown larger. People were talking excitedly, some filming with their phones, others wiping away tears. The story of the puppy's fall and the daring rescue spread quickly, already transforming from a local tragedy to something more. Social media exploded with clips of the incident. #Bridge Rescue was trending. Messages of hope and admiration poured in from across the country. At the vet hospital, a team of specialists rushed River into the intensive care unit. His lungs had water inside from the plunge, and his small body was weak and cold. Yet there was a flicker of life, a spark that gave everyone reason to believe he could survive. As hours passed, Ben sat nearby, wrapped in blankets, watching anxiously. The vet in charge, Dr. Susan Ellis, came to him with cautious optimism. "River's stable," she said quietly. "He's a fighter, but he needs round-the-clock care. It's going to be a long road." Ben nodded, eyes never leaving the small bundle lying under the heat lamp. "Whatever it takes. I'm not giving up on him." That night, Portland held its breath. A story born from heartbreak was beginning to weave a thread of hope. The little puppy named River had survived the fall, and a stranger's courage had saved his life. But neither of them knew that this rescue would be only the first step in a journey that would capture the hearts of a nation. Word of the dramatic rescue spread like wildfire. By mid-afternoon, the video captured by a bystander the heart-stopping moment the puppy fell, and the Navy veteran's fearless dive into the icy river had exploded across social media platforms. Within hours, #BridgeRescue and #SaveRiver were trending worldwide. News outlets picked up the story, turning River, the tiny German Shepherd puppy, into an instant symbol of hope and courage. Local TV stations ran the footage repeatedly, interspersed with interviews of witnesses who described the scene with raw emotion. "I thought I was going to lose him," one woman said through tears. "But then that man jumped in. It was incredible." For Ben Carter, the sudden attention was overwhelming. Calls from reporters, requests for interviews, and messages from strangers flooded his phone. He was unaccustomed to the spotlight, but remained humble. "I just did what I had to do," he told a local newspaper. He didn't deserve to die like that. Meanwhile, at the veterinary hospital where River was fighting for his life, the atmosphere was tense. The pup's lungs were filled with water, a dangerous condition called aspiration pneumonia, and his small body was struggling to stay warm. The veterinary team worked tirelessly, administering oxygen, antibiotics, and fluids. His breathing was shallow, his movements sluggish, but River had a will to survive that defied the odds. As the evening wore on, a crowd gathered outside the clinic. Neighbors, animal lovers, and curious onlookers came with flowers, cards, and blankets. People whispered prayers and shared stories about their own pets, forming a quiet community united by one little dog's battle. The clinic set up a website to update River's condition, and donations began pouring in to help cover the expensive treatment. Thousands of messages arrived daily from all over the country, offering encouragement and support. Children drew pictures of River, sending them with hopeful notes to the hospital. One particularly touching email came from a young girl named Emma, who wrote, "I hope River gets better soon. I believe he's strong because he has a hero like you." Back at home, Ben found himself thinking constantly about River. The puppy's innocent eyes haunted his dreams. He was determined to be there for River in any way possible. He spent long hours at the hospital, sitting quietly in incubator, speaking softly to the dog. "It's okay, little guy," Ben said one evening, brushing damp hair from his forehead. "You're safe now. We're going to get through this." That night, as the city lights twinkled outside, River's condition stabilized. He managed a faint wag of his tail, a tiny but powerful sign that he was not ready to give up. News of River's fight captured the hearts of people far beyond Portland. National animal welfare organizations reached out to offer assistance. The story sparked conversations about pet abandonment, animal cruelty, and the importance of community compassion. Amid the headlines and heartwarming messages, questions remained. How did River end up on the bridge alone? Who could have abandoned such a helpless creature in such a dangerous place? The police launched an investigation, reviewing security footage from the area and gathering witness statements. The city waited anxiously for answers. For Ben, the rescue was no longer just about saving a puppy's life. It was about seeking justice and ensuring River's story had a happy ending beyond survival. And for River, the battle had just begun. As River clung to life in the warm glow of the veterinary intensive care unit, the city of Portland buzzed with questions. How had this puppy ended up alone, teetering on the edge of the Fremont Bridge? Who had abandoned him in such a perilous place? These questions stirred outrage and sorrow in equal measure. Portland animal control officers and local police began a meticulous investigation. They scoured the area around the bridge for clues, interviewed early morning joggers and commuters, and most importantly, reviewed the security cameras mounted nearby. After hours of painstaking footage analysis, a chilling truth came to light. At exactly 6:12 a.m. on that fateful Sunday morning, a white pickup truck rolled slowly down the lane, closest to the pedestrian walkway. The vehicle came to a near stop just before the bridge's guardrail. The passenger side door opened briefly. In the grainy video, a small figure was placed carefully on the sidewalk, a figure that instantly raised alarms. The camera captured the pickup truck speeding away moments later, leaving the puppy alone and vulnerable. Animal control officers froze the frame on the puppy's face, identifying the unmistakable coat pattern that matched River. The evidence was clear. The investigation swiftly focused on tracing the vehicle. License plate recognition technology and witness accounts narrowed the suspect to a man named Travis Delgado, 29 years old, with a history of animal neglect complaints and a record for petty offenses. The public's reaction was swift and fierce. Social media exploded with anger and disbelief. #JusticeForRiver became a rallying cry. Messages flooded local news stations demanding answers and accountability. Within 48 hours, law enforcement located Travis Delgado at his apartment on the city's east side. He was taken into custody for questioning under charges of animal cruelty and abandonment. During interrogation, Delgado initially denied any wrongdoing. "I didn't leave the dog on the bridge," he insisted. "I swear, I don't know what happened." But faced with mounting evidence, video footage, eyewitness reports, and his own inconsistent statements, he broke down. "I didn't know what else to do," he confessed. "I was scared. I didn't want the responsibility." His cold dismissal of River's life ignited fury among Portland residents and animal lovers nationwide. Editorials called for harsher laws against animal abandonment. Local politicians promised to push for tougher penalties and increased funding for animal welfare services. Meanwhile, back at the veterinary hospital, River's condition slowly improved. The small puppy, who had once slipped into the icy river, now fought back with remarkable resilience. His lungs cleared, his breathing steadied, and he even managed a shaky stand on wobbly legs. Ben Carter visited often, growing attached to the brave little survivor. One afternoon, as he sat beside River's incubator, Ben whispered, "You're a fighter, River. We're going to make sure you get the best life after all this." River responded by nuzzling his hand with his tiny wet nose, as if understanding the promise. The story began to evolve beyond tragedy and rescue. It became a tale of accountability, community strength, and hope. Portland residents organized fundraisers to cover River's medical bills, and local pet stores donated supplies. Schools held awareness sessions about responsible pet ownership and the importance of compassion. The rescue team that had pulled River from the riverbank was honored at a city ceremony, celebrated alongside Ben for their courage. And the puppy, once a nameless stray, once at death's door, was now a symbol. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, kindness and courage could turn the tide. But for River, the journey was far from over. As his strength returned, so did the challenge of rebuilding trust. The trauma of abandonment and near death left scars deeper than the physical wounds. Would River be able to overcome the fear that lingered in his eyes? Could he find a new home, a new family, and a life filled with love? Portland and the nation waited anxiously to find out. The arrest of Travis Delgado sent shockwaves through Portland and beyond. Animal rights organizations seized the moment, demanding justice not only for River, but for countless other animals subjected to neglect and cruelty. Protests were held outside the courthouse, with passionate speakers calling for stricter laws to prevent such heartless abandonment. Delgado's trial quickly became a focal point for the community's outrage and hope. The courtroom was packed on the first day, with local media covering every development. Testimonies from witnesses animal control officers, and veterinary experts painted a grim picture of neglect and disregard for life. In his defense, Delgado offered a sparse and remorseful statement. "I made a terrible mistake. I was overwhelmed. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt." But the evidence was clear, and the judge handed down a sentence that reflected the gravity of his actions: felony animal cruelty charges, significant fines, and mandated community service with animal welfare groups. For many, the verdict felt like a step toward healing. Meanwhile, River's journey of recovery continued to inspire everyone who followed his story. With each passing day, the brave pup grew stronger. Physical therapy sessions helped him regain full use of his legs, and his playful spirit began to shine through the lingering shadows of trauma. At the veterinary hospital, River's caretakers marveled at his resilience. His appetite returned, and he began to respond to gentle touch with wagging tail and soft whimpers. The fear in his eyes gradually gave way to trust. Ben Carter remained by his side through it all. His visits became the highlight of River's days, filled with quiet moments of comfort and reassurance. "Hey, buddy," Ben said one afternoon, kneeling beside River's kennel. "You're doing great. We're almost at the finish line." Their bond deepened, woven together by shared survival and hope. Beyond the hospital walls, River's story sparked a movement. Local businesses, inspired by the puppy's fight, donated to shelters and rescue groups. Schools incorporated lessons on animal kindness into their curriculums. Social media groups formed to support pet adoption and responsible ownership. The public's overwhelming response led to the creation of River's Law, a proposed bill aimed at increasing penalties for animal abandonment and improving resources for abandoned pets. Ben lent his voice to advocacy efforts, attending hearings and speaking to lawmakers about the importance of compassion and accountability. Through all the attention and effort, River remained humble, a small dog with a big story. One chilly spring morning, after months of healing and therapy, the veterinary hospital declared River ready for adoption. The news was met with cheers and tears from staff and supporters alike. But for Ben Carter, the choice was already clear. River wasn't just a survivor. He was family. The adoption process was swift. Papers were signed, and soon River had a new home with Ben, a place filled with warmth, safety, and love. Their first day together was quiet but profound. River explored his new surroundings cautiously, sniffing corners and wagging his tail ever so slightly. Ben watched with a smile, knowing that this was only the beginning of a new chapter. That night, as River curled up beside Ben on the couch, the veteran whispered softly, "You're home now, River. No more falling. No more running. Just us." Outside, the city continued its rhythm, unaware of the small, brave dog who had survived a plunge from a bridge, captured a nation's heart, and found hope in the hands of a stranger. But for those who knew the story, River was a beacon, a testament to the power of courage, kindness, and second chances. The weeks following River's adoption by Ben Carter marked the beginning of a remarkable transformation for both dog and man. What started as a rescue had blossomed into a deep bond forged through shared struggle and unwavering hope. River was cautious at first, still haunted by the memory of his fall and abandonment. Shadows made him flinch, loud noises made him hide, and sometimes the cold caused him to tremble uncontrollably. But Ben's patient, gentle care slowly chipped away at the fear that lingered in his eyes. Every morning, Ben would wrap River in a warm blanket before heading out for their walks along the riverbank. The familiar scent of water and pine, mixed with the gentle sun on their faces, became a soothing routine. "You're safe now, buddy," Ben whispered, watching as River tentatively sniffed the grass. "No one's going to let you go again." Their walks became adventures. River learned to trust again, chasing after tennis balls, greeting other dogs, and even allowing children to pet him without fear. With every wag of his tail, every playful bark, he shed a little more of the trauma that had once weighed him down. Ben, too, found solace in their time together. The veteran had battled his own demons, flashbacks, and restless nights haunted by his time in service. Yet, caring for River gave him a renewed purpose. The puppy's courage inspired Ben to face his fears head-on, building a life not defined by past pain, but by hope and healing. Friends and family noticed the change. Ben's smile returned, his step grew lighter, and the light in his eyes grew stronger. River had not only survived the plunge from the bridge, he had rescued Ben in return. As their bond deepened, Ben began volunteering with local animal shelters and therapy programs inspired by River's journey. Together, they attended events where River met hospital patients, elderly residents, and children coping with trauma. The once frightened puppy became a beacon of comfort and joy. River's gentle nature and Ben's steady presence created a ripple effect of kindness in their community. Their story was shared in schools and local newspapers, encouraging responsible pet ownership and compassion toward all living beings. One chilly autumn afternoon, Ben and River returned to the Fremont Bridge, not to relive the past, but to celebrate how far they'd come. They stood side by side, gazing out over the river's flowing waters. Ben reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, hand-carved wooden plaque. It read, "In honor of courage, second chances, and the unbreakable bond between man and dog." He carefully attached it to the bridge's pedestrian railing, just steps from where River had fallen. Passers-by stopped, reading the inscription and whispering words of respect and admiration. Some took pictures. Others paused to reflect. River, sensing the significance, rested his head on Ben's knee, eyes bright and calm. For Ben, that moment was more than symbolic. It was a promise. A promise that no matter the darkness of the past, love and courage could light the way forward. From that day on, River and Ben were inseparable, not just companions, but partners in healing and hope. Their story, born from a terrifying plunge, had grown into a legacy of resilience and kindness that inspired everyone who heard it. And in every wag of River's tail and every smile on Ben's face, the world saw a simple truth. Sometimes the greatest rescues happen when two souls save each other. Months passed, and River's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. The little German shepherd who had once teetered on the edge of death had blossomed into a joyful, confident companion. His coat gleamed, his eyes sparkled with life, and his playful spirit captivated everyone who met him. Ben Carter watched with pride as River adapted to his new life, but he knew their journey was far from ordinary. River had a special gift, a calm presence that seemed to soothe even the most troubled souls. Recognizing this, Ben decided to pursue therapy dog certification for River, hoping to turn the pup's story of survival into a source of healing for others. The process was demanding. River had to learn to navigate crowds, tolerate sudden noises, and remain calm around medical equipment and strangers. At times it was a challenge. Flashbacks of the fall and abandonment would resurface, causing River to grow anxious. But with patience and training, River overcame each hurdle, proving time and again that he was a fighter. Their first official therapy visit was to a local children's hospital. Ben and River walked quietly through the halls, visiting patients and offering comfort. Children reached out, tentatively at first, then with growing smiles and laughter. River's soft fur and gentle eyes seemed to melt away fear and pain. One little girl, Emily, with bandaged arms and a shy smile, reached out her hand. River nudged it gently with his nose, and the two formed an instant connection. Emily's mother later told Ben that seeing River brought hope to her daughter during a difficult treatment. Word spread quickly about River, the wonder dog who had survived a plunge off a bridge, and now helped heal others. Invitations came from schools, nursing homes, and rehabilitation centers. River and Ben traveled across Oregon, spreading messages of courage, compassion, and second chances. Their story was featured in Time magazine's Most Inspirational Stories of the Year. Talk shows invited them to share their journey. Yet, despite the growing fame, Ben remained grounded. "It's not about me or River," he said in one interview. "It's about showing that love and kindness can save lives, human and animal alike." River's gentle spirit also helped Ben confront his own struggles. As a Navy veteran, Ben had faced bouts of post-traumatic stress and loneliness. But the unconditional love he found in River became a source of strength and healing. Together, they found peace. The community embraced their story. Animal shelters reported increased adoption rates, inspired by River's survival and new life. Local lawmakers cited River's case when passing enhanced animal welfare laws, affectionately calling the reforms River's Law. As autumn gave way to winter, Ben and River returned to the riverbank where their journey had begun. The plaque on the Fremont Bridge now gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol of hope for all who passed. Ben knelt beside River, scratching behind his ears. "You're not just a survivor," he whispered. "You're a hero." River responded with a joyful bark and a wag of his tail, a simple celebration of the life they had fought so hard to protect. In the hearts of many, River was more than a dog who survived a fall. He was a living testament to resilience, the power of second chances, and the profound bond between humans and animals. And for Ben and River, their story was far from over. Together, they continued to heal, to inspire, and to remind the world that sometimes the greatest miracles come from the most unexpected places. 1 year after the day River plunged from the Fremont Bridge, Portland was alive with remembrance and celebration. The city's skyline glowed under the golden light of a late summer afternoon. But for Ben Carter and River, this day held special meaning far beyond the beauty of the season. They returned to the very spot where everything had changed, a place that had once been the scene of terror, now transformed into a symbol of hope. The small wooden plaque Ben had placed months earlier still hung firmly on the bridge's railing, catching the light and the gaze of every passerby. In honor of courage, second chances, and the unbreakable bond between man and dog, tourists, locals, and even schoolchildren stopped to read the inscription. Some whispered stories of River's rescue and recovery, others paused to take photos, and many knelt to gently stroke River's thick fur as he wagged his tail happily beside Ben. River had become more than a local hero. He was a living legacy. The past year had been a whirlwind filled with therapy visits, community outreach, and moments of quiet reflection. River's gentle presence had brought comfort to veterans battling PTSD, children coping with illness, and seniors seeking companionship. The bond between River and Ben had deepened into a partnership rooted in empathy and mutual healing. At a ceremony held in the city park that afternoon, River was honored with the Heart of Portland Award, recognition reserved for those who embody the spirit of resilience and kindness. Ben, holding River close, spoke to the crowd gathered beneath towering oaks. "This little dog showed me that even after the darkest fall, there's a way back," he said, voice steady but filled with emotion. River didn't just survive. He thrived. Because of the love and support from so many people. He taught me that second chances aren't just for dogs, they're for all of us. As applause rippled through the crowd, River barked joyfully, sensing the warmth and admiration surrounding him. Their story had become a beacon of hope, not just in Portland, but around the world. Letters and messages continued to pour in from people who had been touched by River's journey. Parents read his story to their children at bedtime. Schools held lessons inspired by his courage, and animal shelters saw an increase in adoptions. driven by the hope River represented. Meanwhile, Ben and River continued their work visiting hospitals, speaking at schools, and partnering with animal welfare organizations to advocate for abandoned and abused pets. But perhaps the most profound change was in the quiet moments, the simple routines that marked their everyday life. Mornings spent walking along the river, evenings curled up by the fire, and lazy afternoons filled with games of fetch and gentle pets. One chilly evening, as snowflakes began to fall softly outside their home, Ben sat on the porch with River at his feet. He looked down at the dog, who gazed up at him with trusting eyes. "You saved me, River," Ben whispered. "More than I ever could have saved you." River's tail thumped softly in response, as if to say, "We saved each other." In that moment, the past year, the fear, the pain, the triumphs felt like a distant memory, replaced by a deep, unbreakable bond. Their story was no longer just about a puppy who fell off a bridge. It was about the power of courage, compassion, and the incredible ways that love can heal even the deepest wounds. For Ben and River, every day was a new chance to write the next chapter, one filled with hope, joy, and the promise that no matter how far you fall, there is always a way to rise again. And that, perhaps, was the greatest lesson of all.